Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Chris, your sneaker professor. Arch-USA is the website. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do so. I try to make sneaker culture and the sneaker industry a little bit more elevated than just kind of the routine dialogue that goes across different platforms. So you'll get some business insight here. You'll get some marketing information. Overall, the goal is to make you smarter about the industry so you can potentially land a job in this culture that we all love. So this week's topic is Timberland. If you look over here to my side, you can see the article, Future 73, a firm foothold in overcoming inventory issues. Now, I won't dive deeply into the inventory issues. It comes up at the end of the post, but you can click through in the description to read the article if you don't feel like listening or watching this whole video. But I think you're going to enjoy it because there's some interesting things happening at Timberland, and it's super timely. It's really amazing. And heading into this next year, 2023, for VF Corp and Timberland, I put in this title, could Timberland be VF Corp's light in 23? And what I like to do with these articles and these discussions is to create a topic that could potentially be carried by someone else or me or whoever Timberland decides that they like, hey, you know what? Let's go talk to that person because I think they have good ideas. If you guys can present different ideas and discussions to these brands, then maybe you get a chance to do some consulting. But let's get to the article. Future 73, a firm foothold in overcoming inventory issues. Could Timberland be VF Corp's light in 2023? I love this picture. Imagine. And that's from the firm Foothold video. And that's going to be down a little bit in this discussion. I'm going to play some of it, but not a lot of it. It's a really interesting thing to get into. Anyway, let's go. Merrell, right, remains my go-to boot company. And you can tell I've been looking at the Merrell site because under my picture that's here on the side underneath me, you can see this Merrell ad just floating. And that's because I was on the site looking at some stuff. I actually have that boot that's over there to the side. And I'm sure Timberland's like, hey, why are you talking about Merrell? But let me keep going. Merrell is my go-to boot company. Timberland could creep up into my must-have for fashion in 2023. I'm going to show you some pictures in here from the Future 73 collection that's going to be dropping throughout the year where you're going to be like, dude, those are nice. And I don't have a lot of pictures. Timberland didn't send me a lot of pictures. I actually pulled these from the website. But this is the thing. With the drops that are coming in at Future 73, I could definitely resort to my 90s Timbs in the summer aesthetics with those boots that they're going to deliver. All right. Now, this is what's really cool about the Future 73. Timberland's celebrating 50 years. It couldn't arrive at the most perfect time for the brand. And I'm pausing because if you know what the 50th anniversary means at this moment and at this time, not for Timberland, but for the culture. Timberland became synonymous with hip hop culture, and hip hop is celebrating its 50th anniversary. For Timberland to be in sync with one of the most important cultural movements in history is a branding opportunity unlike anything I've witnessed in fashion at any point except maybe Dapper Dan creating leather suits from luxury brand materials in the 80s when rap videos began to move across the country via BET. Now, why would I mention Merrell in a discussion on Timberland? I've been high on Merrell since the brand began supporting endeavors by people from diverse backgrounds. I'm getting to my point. Merrell doesn't have any presence at all in the Black community. But the company supports African American disabled veterans, and they promote diversity in the outdoors. And in the last 5 years, as a family, we've purchased at least 11 pairs of Merrell footwear. My wife wears hers for fashion. I wear mine on trail jogs and hiking. I have 2 pair I have incorporated into my casual wear, but those shoes aren't heavy in my rotation. I wear Kith, Clarks, and Wallabies, and I have a brand black that's thrown in there for anything that I consider kind of boot-styled fashion. But I don't own any Timbs right now. It's a problem for Timberland. And this is why I'm discussing this, because in college, even living in sunny San Diego, I had so many Timbs, I would give them to my teammates. One of my roommates owned every pair of Timberlands that he saw Wu-Tang wearing. Now, in San Diego, Chuck Taylors, Cortez, and khakis, that's what dominated most of the streetwear. But we had an underground hip hop circuit in San Diego in the 90s that was led by a crew named Masters of the Universe, Motu. These were a collection of San Diego MCs that basically became our version of Wu-Tang. And that's a big shout out to Orko, Eclipse, Josh Sun, all of the people that were associated with Masters of the Universe, basically a crew of B-boys. And there were these great shows. There was this heavy backpack energy that basically allowed Timberlands to not be given a side eye in San Diego. We would wear Timbs down to Mission Beach with jorts. That's jean shorts, if you don't know what jorts are. And we have our tees on. And then we would go to like hip hop functions and poetry functions when I didn't have basketball practice. But as the years have passed, Timberland hasn't been in my rotation. I don't own one pair. Now, even in the last few years, as 90s retro became popular again, I picked up Wu Wear, I picked up Champion gear, but I passed on buying Timbs. Now, my distance from the brand is generated from the fact that the in-store experience of where Timbs are carried is not very good. And Timberland, they basically don't speak to the generation that made the brand a status symbol. They don't talk to us. We made Timberland a part of the culture. Timberland in my head, they kind of stayed too long in the area where they delivered these Dipset pink and multicolored Timbs. And I kind of remember that phase, and I placed the brand in that era. But hip hop and sneaker culture has matured. And this is important. Hip hop is 50 years old. There was a recent Grammy performance highlighting the music that has garnered all of this, amazing interest. Hip hop is the number one music art form in the world. The recent Grammy performance, however, Timberland wasn't as prominent as you would have expected. It was mostly Air Force Ones on the stage during those performances. LL Cool J wore Forces, Nelly wore Forces. Dang near everybody was wearing either Jordan Brand or Forces. It was like, in my head, I'm still like, dang, this is a celebration of hip hop. Hip hop was born in New York. Where are the Timbs? And there was no presence. And this is what's really strange. When you consider that Corp is now one of the most prominent aspects of fashion, you also have to consider this, that hip hop, or the hip hop community, or maybe the black community, if I want to be frank, doesn't even know what Corp is. So that community is not carrying the boot aesthetic of the outdoors into fashion as much as you would expect. That community doesn't care. And maybe that's why the celebration of hip hop on the Grammys didn't really feature Timberland. Or it could be that there's a lingering taste of appropriation around Timberland. In 2020, I wrote this post. You look over here to the side. 30 years of co-opting ignorance and growth. How Timberland pimped hip hop to $1 billion. Now, that was a very harsh article. I went into just a whole of research on the brand, and I realized how harsh the article was, and I started to understand some certain things about Timberland. I eventually followed up that article with real evidence that Timberland has been working on issues around diversity. But I did all of that research myself. I had to seek it out and find it and contact the company and get documentation and information on programs that they have. I sought that out. The everyday consumer is not going to seek that out, and they are going to maintain. There was literally a moment when people connected the tree on the Timberland boots to lynchings. And I have to wonder if Timberland even knows about that moment. And you had people that had like started switching over to wearing Rockports, and even Lugs was able to come in and get some shine from Timberland. But I think that stays there in the mindset of a lot of people. And Timberland kind of finds itself in this difficult to escape position. But any brand not named Nike is in that same position. So let's not just dump that all on Timberland. Timberland, when it's not affiliated with outdoor, is sold in urban accounts. When retail for sneakers and boots is in position for a more elevated experience, entire demographics are overlooked. Catch that. I'm going to read that again. When retail for sneakers and boots is in position for a more elevated experience, entire demographics are overlooked. This is important. Timberland is a part of sneaker culture because of its connection to hip hop. But the retail experience for sneakers and urban culture is trapped in this loop of antiquated visual merchandising and store experiences lacking in delivering a better experience. So Timberland is stuck on a wall at a retail location. I'm not going to say what retail locations. Any sneaker retailer, Timberland is just slapped on a wall along with all of these sneaker brands. And I think it's a horrible, horrible mistake. A lot of consumers aren't fond of shopping at sneaker retail. And those consumers haven't been introduced to stores like REI or the outdoor segment for Dick's Sporting Goods. They haven't been introduced to those stores. And this has left the consumer with the most disposable income irritated by in-store experiences and has led to the demographic with the most disposable income ramping up their online shopping experiences. Now, that demographic, according to Statista, just so happens to coincide with the hip-hop generation. Notice I'm trying to connect some dots here. In 2021, the disposable income of a household led by a millennial in the United States was $84,563 US per year. Households led by someone born in Generation X had a disposable income of around $102,512 US in 2021. You know that coveted youth category that everyone talks about and tries to cater to? That coveted category has next to the lowest disposable income. That means brands are overlooking me and 30-somethings, and it doesn't make sense to not cater to the millennial and Gen X when we are the ones who have the disposable income and we created sneaker culture. Now, I dropped an article in here that you can look at, and it shows the shifting demographics of sneakerhead culture. And I've written consistently about how overlooked the original sneaker culture generation is. I've discussed the problems associated with this overlooking of that generation in detail. And that's where you see this article. Those issues are rearing their heads in a slowdown across the board in sneaker sales. And this shapes Timberland because of where the boots are carried. Still connecting dots. Timbs are considered to be a part of sneaker culture. And the culture and retail experience undercuts where where and how I believe Timberland should be presented at retail. Now, this discussion that I placed up here at the top that you see over here to my side, that discussion goes into the misconceptions about the age of people who are buying kicks. And because the misinformation around who's buying sneakers is so readily accepted, there are guardians to youth culture, and the brands fail to check on this kind of 30 to 50-year-old market. And I know that's a big, broad spectrum of 30 to 50, but after years of e-commerce that I've done in third party on the sneaker selling side of the industry, I found a gigantic, and this is for if you're thinking about starting a retail store of some type, I found a gigantic hole in sneaker retail that has yet to be covered. You can ask me about it. But it seems that Timberland could be more than capable of filling that need than any other brand, simply based on the fact that hip hop is turning 50 and there are going to be celebrations throughout this year. Timberland has yet to introduce a concept for this whole in sync kind of moment. But the company has delivered a couple of striking campaigns, and it's showing their increased actions in diversity. And that's with the short film, A Firm Foothold. And they've also rolled out a 50th anniversary celebration called Future 73. Now, I want to get into A Firm Foothold just a touch here.
For a second. No. A nanosecond.
Now I'm going to jump ahead here because I wanted to move to where you could see the design element and Chris Dixon. So you have Paul, you have Chris that are featured in this video for Timberland and for VF Corp. And then you have the Future 73 collection with Susan Hengel, Sam Ross, Dr. Ross, a Cole co-founder, right? Founder and creative director, I'm sorry. Dr. Ross and a Cole Wall, and I'm calling him Doctor intentionally instead of just saying Samuel Ross. He's a doctor. Chris Rayburn, who makes a lot of dope stuff, man. Nina Chanel Abney, and this is an interesting one. So you have the Firm Foothold, this Firm Foothold video, right? And you have the Future 73 collection that's going to be delivered over the course of this year. And it's when you look at these pictures, I wish I had more shots. This Nina Chanel Abney is the only one that kind of concerns me because I'm wondering if the brand did any research on what happened with Nina Chanel and Jordan Brand and how poorly Jordan Brand utilized Nina Abney. Timberland, if they do the right thing with her, could be explosive. Now, this is a little bit of a sidebar because I'm going to go to Humberto and Edison Chen, who's the founder of Clyde, right? But Nina Chanel is an interesting one because the Jordan 2s that came out for Nina Chanel, I wrote a post on recently about how Nike had discounted those shoes. I actually got one of those shoes back and I showed it to my daughter, who's 15. She didn't know who Nina Chanel Abney was. But when I gave her the box and she saw the art on the box, she was like, this is great. And then when she opened it up and she saw the shoe, the white and green color, and the hang tag with the artwork of Nina Abney on that hang tag, she said, I want these. And I just went ahead and gave them to her because she didn't know who she was, but she immediately picked up her phone and looked up Nina Chanel Abney. There was power in her collection, and Jordan Brand completely underutilized it. And I'm hoping get ahead of myself. The Future 73 collection and the Firm Foothold video, both of those things offer insight into a brand that has the potential to stand out more than its peers under the VF Corporation umbrella. The collections being released for the 50th anniversary, like I showed you, they look fantastic. They look great. The 6 collaborators have delivered options which will drop throughout the year. But none of the releases have a connection rooted in hip hop. A Firm Foothold, the video, featuring the Constant Development, right, team, that program by Chris Dixon, that program needs to be fleshed out now. And it needs to be fleshed out beyond youth education solely for 2023. And here's why. It needs to expand into an educational component. Why am I saying that? Future 73 should also be connected to hip-hop artists. It's not my job to explain fully how Timberland should be leading VF Corp into 2023, but it is my goal to introduce the discussion. In a recent note from analyst Sam Poser, VF Corp's inventory issues were an important issue to consider for their fiscal year that's upcoming. I'm adding to his analysis that Timberland's retail distribution strategy requires an adjustment. There is a natural alignment between hip hop and Timberland. It's a seamless, it's just timeliness is ridiculous. And it offers a compelling chance for Timberland to be a shining light in 2023, although projections for the first half of the fiscal year will be difficult. If the Constant Development educational program begins to implement aspects of hip hop, and like I said, it's not my job to problem solve this. Timberland has not hired me for anything. I'm stimulating conversation. There is a great opportunity for Timberland to capitalize on this year. That's it for this week, guys. Hopefully you have something to talk about carrying you through the weekend into next week, and maybe you'll come up with something and reach out to Timberland yourself. I will see you on the next one. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and share the information, because there's a lot of great old information here that people aren't watching. I don't get a lot of viewers, but maybe it's time for that to change. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace. Hip hop